Okay, here we go. All right, it looks like we are live. Thank you guys so much for coming on today. We are talking about the MacBook Pro versus the Mac Mini. I'm on here with Tech Notice, and if you're looking for a place to build a PC, that is the place to be. He has had spent about 2 weeks, a week or so, I think about 2 weeks now with the Mac Mini.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
Okay, cool. And myself, I've spent about 2 weeks with the MacBook Pro. And so we're talking about the pros and cons of each one, the differences. Is this the new thing? Is the Mac Mini M1 taking over every computer you've ever bought? Because that's what some people want you to believe. And we're going to talk through all that right now. So I'm going to kick it over to Tech Notice, and he's going to dive into the Mac Mini, and then we'll discuss kind of some of the key differences and answer any questions you guys have.
Yeah. Hello, everybody, from my side as well, whoever's tuning in. We can see that there's Atharva, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, from India, is watching. So welcome, everybody, to the stream. Definitely an honor to be speaking here with Ben. And I think it's interesting just how Apple's just taken over the YouTube and especially the internet. You know, everybody's talking about the M1 chip, and I'm hearing a lot of mixed reviews as well. I'm hearing a lot of mixed things. Some people are saying it's the best thing that is out there, that no Windows or, PC can actually come close to the M1 chip.
Yeah.
And then there's some people who are saying, look, it's not that great. It means what you're doing, but definitely very interesting
Different perspective.
Yeah, definitely. So I've been testing it mainly on like Adobe Premiere Pro and Adobe apps, which kind of is not fair on Apple in a way, because these are not the optimized apps. But I think there's a lot of people in there who actually use Adobe apps, use Adobe softwares, and they're wondering, okay, should I be switching? Is my Windows obsolete now, and should I be switching to the M1 Mac Mini or whatever? And then I'm trying to find these answers. And from my testing, what I've done so far, I've tried to kind of answer the question for myself: who is this for?
Yes, that is the best question to be asking right now and answering.
Who is this one for? Because it's like a small Mac Mini, right? It is as powerful as any of the laptops out there. It scores better than the 16 Mac.
Here, we'll show Cinebench 23 right now for the people as you're talking.
Yeah, go on. It's like unbelievable performance that way. But then you're wondering, okay, what about the Windows PCs then? Because it was interesting because like Cinebench changed the scoring with the R23.
Mm-hmm.
So when the M1 chip scores came out, and if you compared it to the old R20 scores, it looked like, oh my word, it's getting close to like, because I think 3900X, Ryzen 3900X 12-core, multi-core scores around 8,000 or something, 7,000, 8,000 in the multi-core of R20.
Okay.
And then when you get the new R23 M1 Mac score 7,700 something,
yes,
you think, this is crazy.
Yeah.
This is going to be crazy, but actually that's not the truth. When you do the test again on the 3900X, it's going to score like over 10,000 or something, like miles more than before. And I was so confused at first. I was like, whoa, what's going on? But they've changed it, so I don't know, are these guys trying to do this on Apple's favor or not? But I just think it's interesting.
Well, it's definitely worth talking about that. You got to make sure you're having fair comparisons. Because I think that's like ground zero. If we can't have fair comparisons, then we don't actually know the value of something or not. So, when it comes to looking at the Mac Mini or the MacBook Pro, you're going to get more value out of real-world tests than you will simulated benchmarks. And simulated benchmarks are great because they can, give us a quick sampling of like what it's doing. But if like if my Mac Mini score or my MacBook Pro that I have, the M1 scores 7,000 in Cinebench, but then I take it into Premiere Pro and I'm editing my standard 4K projects and on my let's say the Asus Zephyrus G14, which is a very popular laptop currently. It's got great performance. And if I drop, 3 frames during the entire playback test of that whole project, of the 9-minute 4K project with motion graphics and with about 16,000 frames, and I drop 3 frames, but then I play it with the MacBook Pro M1 and I drop 5,147, well, which computer is better?
Yeah, definitely. That's interesting.
The Asus Zephyrus is better. It's better contextually. And so that's the thing that a lot of people are, talking about is like, oh, it's better. And yeah, there's some really good reasons it's better. And I have a full video I'm going to post about why is it good. And I'll just give a quick preview. The reason it's good is because it's technological development. So they're using a 5 nanometer process versus the traditional 10 nanometer or even 7 nanometer of AMD, which allows them to get more transistors on the CPU. It allows them to be closer together. It allows them to be somewhat faster because of that. And so what you're seeing is a faster CPU, but the computer overall isn't faster. The computer overall doesn't have a dedicated GPU, which is important. It's important to have a dedicated GPU for a lot of creator tasks like motion design, graphic design, not graphic design. That's totally wrong. Motion design, video editing, 3D modeling. You put this MacBook Pro into those tests and it's not going to come up as the winner on most tests.
Sorry, I'm fine.
You're fine.
I was just, if I went black for a second, I just showed my wife down there.
Where are you going? How much memory? So memory. So I got 8 gigs, and I believe Technotus got 16, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I got 8 gigs as well.
We did the base models. We wanted to see what Apple's lowest offering was, and so we both went for the base models because obviously when you add more RAM, you're just going to get better, multi-app performance. So we went with the base models just to see what you could get. For me, $1,300, and I think for you it was about $900 or so.
700 actually. It's $699.
What?
Which is crazy. So M1 Mac Mini. Sorry if you hear.
You're good, dude. Just roll with it. No worries.
So if you get the Mac Mini M1, it is $699 or whichever currency wherever you're from, and that is like the cheapest way to get started into the Mac ecosystem, which is like amazing. The previous Mac Mini was
awesome.
Like much more expensive, I think.
Yeah.
Someone, Akash, is saying, is Apple Pro M1 better in gaming purpose than RTX 2060? No chance.
Yeah, not at all. Yeah, and so that's where the context comes into play. Is yes, it's a great laptop, but the problem is you're gonna have like people say this is the best laptop that's ever been made. Yeah, it's the best laptop that's ever been made in its context. It kills. So I have an 11th gen laptop. I have the HP Spectre X360 in my shop right now. It's the 1165 G7. So it's their premier 11th gen with an integrated graphics and no dedicated GPU. And the new Mac Mini and the new MacBook Pro M1 absolutely kill it. So, the drop frame rate in Premiere Pro for the MacBook Pro M1 was 5,000 drop frames, but for the new Intel 11th gen mobile processor was 11,000 drop frames. Okay, so yes, it's better in its category, but it isn't gonna beat out all this other stuff that is premier high performance. Well, not premier, high performance equipment. That's one of the biggest things I think we're seeing right now.
Another big thing, which is I just finished watching Armando Ferreira, if you know that guy. Armando's video on the M1, and he was, because he's a big commercial filmmaker, or does a bit more maybe cameras that are more cinema codecs, like RAW and B-RAW and things like that. And as soon as you drop anything that is more than normal mirrorless camera footage on it, it just absolutely cripples the M1. It just 100%. can't do it,
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So if there's a lot of big filmmakers who think, "Whoa, this is going to be amazing for me, I'm going to get it," then please hold your horses. Wait until the next whatever M1X comes out. But at the moment, this is just for beginning and basic, the baseline. This is baseline of Mac. That's why I did a video on my channel, posted it recently, and one of the biggest comment people were saying, "Oh, you're comparing this baseline Mac to like the Windows high-end desktop workstations, and yes, I did, because that was what people were saying, that this
Yes,
is better than them,
exactly.
and I was showing that, look, this is baseline of Macs, right? This is
Yeah,
not going to be high right now. It's going to be better, but this is baseline. We have to remember that it's baseline, and what it does on the
100%.
baseline, it's awesome.
Yes. Yeah, that's the real thing. So, is for a baseline, like for a graphic designer, this is like revolutionary in performance for the price. That's the thing. Like price is really the thing to be looking at right now. Like this is a $1,200 Apple laptop that is 100 points better. Here, let me show you something real quick. If we can get to this, it's 100 points better in Photoshop than the current Intel. So here, let me pull this up. If you can see on the screen here, I don't know if you can, Lori, but you can see here. Here's the M1, right? Highlighted in blue. And if you look 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to the right on the screen, you can see the MacBook Pro i5. That's the current 2020 MacBook Pro i5. Okay,
Yeah, I
so
can see it
right
as well, man.
now you can see that the current MacBook Pro M1 is over 100 points better than the current MacBook Pro i5. So yes, it is better. But let's look at this chart here, okay? Here's my Ryzen i9 10900K in Photoshop. It has a 937, okay? Here's the Gigabyte Aero 17 HDR. It has a 780. We have to make sure we're keeping things in context so that we don't deceive ourselves in thinking, oh gosh, Mac finally made a budget-friendly $1,300 laptop that I'm going to edit 4K red footage in and be, the filmmaker of tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's something we can't lie to ourselves about.
Yeah, it's true. I think the fair comparison is if we compared the Mac to the previous Macs, and in that area, like as soon as you
Yes.
start comparing it to the Windows, you kind of say, oh no, it's not, it's not cutting it actually, especially when you go Adobe, any Adobe, it's just not going to cut it. But if you go with maybe DaVinci, you've done some DaVinci tests, right?
It's
I
pretty
would be
quick.
interesting knowing like what that is, because that's more optimized for the M1,
Yes.
and it works on both platforms, Windows or Mac. So that would
Yeah.
be interesting.
Yeah.
But it's the same. It couldn't, as soon as you put anything like more Cinema Raw or ProRes or Blackmagic Raw on it, it seems to be just crippling a little bit. So my question to you is, who do you think this is for? Like the M1, MacBook Air, MacBook Pro, and Mac Mini. Who do you think Apple targeted to get it on? Because they were very very, very vague about their
Okay.
graphs.
Yeah.
2x better, 6x
Yep.
better
Yep.
performance, no comparison. Who do you
Okay.
think this is for?
Well, that's a great point. So 2x better. Well, actually, that's not really a point because Photoshop is only like 1.5x better. So in that case, I guess they did get 1.4x better, and that's what we saw. So if you know here, let me get really technical for a second. I'm going to answer your question. So there's a thing called Dennard scaling, and Dennard scaling is the idea that every year or every couple of years that technology comes out, the transistors will get smaller, and that will allow for a 1.4% better in performance. Okay, and that's exactly what we saw. We saw the Dennard scaling take place when Apple went from a 10 nanometer processor in the Intel i5 to a 5 nanometer process in the M1, and we saw a 1.4% boost in performance in Photoshop. Dennard scaling nailed it exactly, which then follows up by the Moore's law, which says that technology will, improve and scale along that rate as well. So those two coming together, we had an accurate picture of that. Okay, so yes, that was true. It did take place. Now, the question is, who is it for? So it would be for, the MacBook Air would definitely be for like my wife, who wants to like edit pictures in iPhoto, browse the internet, and she can build like websites. So like she has built her website so she could do like WordPress and Elementor development. So like more like website builders. She could maybe edit some Photoshop stuff. No, not maybe, for sure. She could do some Photoshop editing on the MacBook Air. Okay, who is the MacBook Pro for? I would say the MacBook Pro would be somebody who's editing some video inside of Final Cut. I think it'd be amazing for Final Cut. I've seen a lot of people using Final Cut. I don't personally, and it's like super quick. So yeah, I think it's a great laptop for even editing 4K footage in Final Cut. I think it'd be great for doing 1080p in a Premiere Pro or DaVinci Resolve, even at like half or fourth quality during playback. I think it'd be super smooth. You could add some motion graphics, you could do a few things, and I think it'd be fantastic. So I think they're targeting first and foremost like everyday users. So people going to college with the MacBook Air, they're giving them a faster computer, and then like kind of your base creator. That would be my guess. And by base, I just mean it's not like you're not doing movie productions. You're not running like a full, $100,000+ a year YouTube channel. I mean like in revenue. There's not you just can't do certain things. It just doesn't have the raw brunt horsepower to handle a big production. Did that answer your question? I'm just trying to.
Yeah, no, I definitely. I personally would even add something to it. I think the M1s are really good. I'm coming mostly from the Mac Mini perspective, right? The Mac Mini and the M1, the other devices as well, they're very good for doing like getting people started on anything they want to do, but in the basic kind of scale of things. So even if you want to learn, a person, let's say, who hasn't got any history of any programs and they want to learn, whether it's Adobe, DaVinci, Final Cut, anything you want, you can do it on them. But as soon as you are already developed or established, creator or whoever, professional working on your field, I don't think this is for you yet. It doesn't make sense to change unless, you don't really have to think about what you're buying and you just cash out anything, then by all means, right? But for people who are thinking, do you know what, I really have to think, is this a wise spending option? Do I really want to spend that money on it? I don't think it is, unless you are someone who wants to really get started in like learning video editing, photo editing, development, coding, anything. Then the Mac Mini is going to be amazing buy. For $699, you get the Apple ecosystem. I know you're going to be stuck with whatever specs you get, but you got the promise of whatever making. So let's say if you make a few, I don't know, wedding videos, some kind of gigs, a few gigs, $200 each. It takes you 3 gigs to pay for the Mac Mini. That is not bad. Now that is not bad.
And I mean, Acer's got a really nice color accurate screen that I'm using right here called the Acer Concept DCM2. It's a $300 Adobe RGB 100% screen. So for 7 plus 3, you're at $1,000. You're less than the MacBook Pro at $1,300 plus tax.
Exactly.
Totally agree.
And the Mac Mini has the best cooling and the best performance actually out of the M1s, because it has just bigger cooling than the fan is bigger, the heatsink is better, so it thermal throttles less, but they're basically very similar to each other.
Yes.
But the M1 Mac Mini is like the best performance out of the bunch, if you ask that.
Well, that's the crazy thing. So I will give some props to let's see. I will get some props to the silent aspects of it. So during the 4K export, okay, what is up with the giveaway title? Does it really say giveaway? Because I changed the title to say this. I'll post it in the comments right now. Everybody keeps saying giveaway clickbait. I'll be so annoyed if that's supposed to be the title. So if whoever's watching says it's clickbait, that's the actual title that should have gone live.
No, it says Apple Mac Mini. Yeah, that's what I see as well.
Okay, so I'm sorry.
I see. It's your old. It didn't save the thumbnail. It's the old thumbnail.
Okay. All right. Well,
it says the Legion giveaway thumbnail.
Okay, here we go. I'll switch that, guys. So basically, okay. So what I will say while I'm switching out this thumbnail is the absolute importance of considering if you want a quiet computer. So here we go, guys. This will be the right thumbnail. Sorry about that. So the 2 things to notice: clickbait thumbnail. All right, I changed it. You guys are awesome. Thank you. So basically, the 2 things that you will see is, okay, when editing in a Asus Zephyrus G14, okay, you're gonna have over 60 decibels of fan noise. It literally sounds like a jet engine taking off. It's annoying. It's annoying. I personally don't fan noise doesn't personally annoy me, but I know it annoys a lot of people. And so, yeah, that's super annoying. Whereas with the MacBook Pro, the entire export, I didn't see any fan noise. Now, it was a slower export than the Asus Zephyrus, but it was only slower by about a minute to 2 minutes. But it was literally silent. There was no fan noise. So the nanometer process, there's the thing. That's the advancement we're seeing. So when this goes into, the MacBook Pro with a dedicated GPU, it's going to be bonkers. It's going to be incredible because it has a 5 nanometer process, which means it runs cooler, more efficient, and it'll perform better. So guys, will this be amazing for pro creators? Yes, when it continues up the Apple ecosystem. Am I right?
Yeah, definitely. I'm seeing some questions over here on.
Yeah, let's do it.
There is Carl Milanis.
Yes.
Milanis says, I'm planning to start game developing. Is it worth to invest my $2,000 plus budget for the Mac Pro M1? I am planning to use it in graphic design as well. I would like to make 3D, 2D animations. To be honest, for $2,000, you would get an absolute killer PC that will probably be even better whatever Apple comes out with the MacBooks 16-inch and 14-inch. Here's why. Because you will have a dedicated graphics card. You will never get the graphics performance from a mobile chip. It's just impossible.
Well, and dedicated graphics.
Yeah, in that price point, you will never get that performance. Even if you go with the RTX 3060 Ti, which is like the lowest new graphics card you can go for, and then Ryzen 5600X or 5800X.
Yeah, you can do that for 2,000.
Yeah, you could probably get that for 2,000. It was amazing.
Yeah. So let's say Apple launches the MacBook Pro 16 with the M1X chip. That's what everybody's kind of leaking right now. I just saw that this morning.
Yeah.
Let's say that happens, right? Okay, so you got a dedicated GPU, you got the Apple M1X. You're gonna be sitting around at least, I would say, $1,900 to $2,500, and that's with the 4 gig card, a dedicated 4 gig card. And the reason I bring the price down from the current model is because Apple is showing that they're actually going to give us better deals when they put their own tech into the system. But the problem I have with that is game development, as far as I know, is very GPU intensive. You're doing a lot of 3D rendering, modeling. I mean, that's just intense. And so you're going to want to get at least 6 gigs of VRAM. I mean, maybe even, that's the 3960. Is that 6 gigs of VRAM?
3960
should be.
Yeah, 60 or 8 maybe.
Okay.
I think it's actually 8. Should be
awesome.
8 now.
That'd be awesome.
All of them.
Okay, so 8 gigs of VRAM. So you're just absolutely punching in performance. So I know we just totally steered you away from like buying a laptop and all that, and maybe that was your goal. But it's just, you don't want to come up short in the performance you need. Yeah, it's a great laptop. The build quality is amazing. The keyboard's amazing. The trackpad, like all these things are amazing about it. But if you can't actually do the job that you are planning on doing with the tech, then it literally is a pile of metal that looks really, really stinking pretty in the corner of your office. And that's that's been the biggest issue with Apple for a long time, is you pay Apple Premium because it is a premium product. It isn't always premium performance at the price.
Yeah.
At the price.
Yeah.
Okay, let's keep moving through here. Does MacBook Pro... Okay, you answered this earlier, Lori. Does MacBooks able to edit and render videos in 8K resolution? Give your quick example of the filmmaker, and then we can keep
So basically, as long as you stay below 4K, and you can actually... 4K Red Raw, I tested, and it was fine. But as soon as it becomes like 8K... raw, any color grading and things like that, more professional cinema, let's say cinema camera codecs, you're probably going to start, you're going to be lagging, you're going to be struggling a little bit. I definitely want to, show out Armando's video, if anyone knows who Armando is. He was just amazing. He tested like the M1, like maxed out MacBook Pro with Mac Pro and like loads of different. And coming from like a cinema grade person, cinematographer like type of background, he just wasn't able to do much. But yeah, that's that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it shows that like computers are, like we said earlier, computers are made to fit their specific category. We said a MacBook Air
Yeah.
would be great for somebody going to college, editing photos. Somebody like my wife who loves to take pictures of our
Hmm.
children and just, do quick photo edits. They're not doing these big productions. They're not dealing with super heavy Photoshop layers. That's a great use case for a MacBook Air. And then a MacBook Pro moves into more heavier Photoshop, some light 1080p video editing, so on and so forth. Okay, so the next question comes from, as far as I can see, comes from Sean. Apple M1 MacBook Pro for new YouTuber for video editing. I shoot all my stuff in 1080p currently. So I could edit on the MacBook Pro M1 with definitely with Final Cut and most likely with Premiere Pro um, at half quality, and I should have no issues. So I mean, if
Yeah.
for a new YouTuber, especially if you're using Final Cut, which honestly I would recommend if you're going to be in the Mac ecosystem because Final Cut's
Yeah.
really easy to use. It's like a jacked up iMovie. Yeah, I mean, I would totally go for it.
Yeah, honestly, I don't really understand if people move to Mac and then start editing on Premiere Pro and like start doing that. If you go for the Mac ecosystem, you should be really
Yeah.
using Final Cut or DaVinci, at least.
Unless you're going to deal with editors. So for instance, I
Yeah,
hire out an editor for my content, so I need to know how to explain how to do certain things that I want or pass off my native files to him. So if we're
yeah,
talking creator ecosystem, Premiere Pro is more universal. So for
yeah,
me, it makes more sense for me to edit in Premiere. That way when I pass off new ideas, I can explain it very easily. Otherwise, if
yeah,
it's just you, I mean, Final Cut's an amazing product. I honestly, a lot of times I'm like, I wish I could use Final Cut because it's so much more simple.
yeah. It's the same, same
Yeah.
here. Because like now with the Apple and the M1 optimization, I've been like realizing, I've been thinking, should I start learning DaVinci or should I start learning Final Cut to just move my workflow? But then I realized I would be spending so much time learning that and not actually getting work done. Then it's not worth it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. When you ended up waiting on performance, which is why I got a 12 core, 24 thread PC because I often have a lot of multitasking going on. I mean, I'm live
Yeah,
streaming while like doing Windows, and I could be editing a thumbnail and also like exporting video editing footage right now, and my PC would be like, "What else you got for me?" It's very
yeah,
powerful, and a MacBook Pro M1 would like literally crap the bed.
yeah,
So it's how it rolls. Um,
yeah.
okay, so okay. So Carl had a follow-up question, and then we'll keep moving on to more questions here. He said, "I rent a room right now, so I don't want to take up the space with a PC build." I totally get that. So you could actually end up getting like to get into your game development, you could get into a $1,500 laptop that is a Windows, and I'm not trying to push you towards Windows just because we're Windows fanboys. We're not. I have like Apple product. I use all Apple products at my like daytime job. So like I'm not a Windows fanboy. I'm just talking about like price to performance. You could
Hmm.
get an Asus Zephyrus, G14 for $1,600. You could get a HP Omen for $1,500, and it would get you through college, so to speak, help you with your game development, and then by the time you finish college, you could maybe sell that and then upgrade to the Mac that you want.
Yeah.
So I would only say wait if you really want to wait.
Yeah, and maybe like just another option to consider is why don't you go with Mac Mini then? Mac Mini takes hardly any space, and if you get a keyboard and a monitor, later on when you upgrade to a better PC, let's say a bigger one, when you actually need the raw horsepower, you can still use this. But when you upgrade to a PC from a MacBook, you can't use the display, you can't use the keyboards, so all these things will be kind of wasted. But all the Mac Mini is like cheap as well.
Yeah.
So it will cost you less. But the question is, can you actually fit them in there? And do you have a
Yeah.
table somewhere? Can you really fit it?
And
I
do you
don't
need the
know.
performance? That's the concern. Like, do you actually need that performance? I went dead. Sorry. Do you actually need the performance that you're talking about?
Yeah.
So that's also important. So the next question we have here, I'll have you answer this while I get a new battery. I want to answer this real quick. He says, Satyajit said, "I'm going with Apple because it's very awesome in display and control." Um, I think he's referring to like the color accuracy and the quality control. Color accuracy you
Hmm.
can find on a lot of different laptops, and the quality control is improving a lot as well. But yeah, those are really key Apple Those are Apple like tags, like quality control and color accuracy. But there's more color accurate monitors out there. I mean, I was testing the new MacBook Pro, and the Gigabyte Aero 15 has way more color accuracy and lower color gamut range, so it's better. Next question though is Shot Jeet. He says Apple upgrades their software. Upgrade is needed for future. They stick for future stick on older software. Okay, I'm not sure if that's a question or not. All right, sorry. I'll be right back. If you want to continue.
Yeah. I can see. I'll just see the last question over here. Is Olu Media saying Mac Mini versus MacBook? Okay, I'm trying to kind of figure out what you mean by that question. But if you mean Mac Mini versus MacBook, which is cheaper, then the cheaper option is Mac Mini, and the performance will be better than all of the M1s. So best performance is from the Mac Mini, because just the cooling solution is the best. Depends whether you need the screen and the keyboard and things like that. Then you might need a MacBook or something like that. That's what I'm saying. But I personally don't do a lot of like on the go editing. Then I would go Mac Mini. Now another very, very interesting, I think. Hey, Ben's back. Another very interesting aspect that I think we have to mention is that the MacBook, and Ben, you probably know more about this, but the MacBook Pros and MacBook Air, the M1s, they are consistent in performance whether you've got your laptop plugged in or not plugged in. So they can do the performance on, just on a battery powered somewhere, wherever on your bed, or whether it's plugged in. A lot of Windows laptops, even if you get like the, I don't know, Ben, you can help me out, like with the Ryzen 9 chips inside, as soon as you unplug it, you're going to lose a lot of power, actual performance of the chip, because it needs to be plugged in to give you the like big performance. Yeah. Have you experienced that?
The problem is you don't ever know which laptop it's going to be, because a lot of them do that. So, and I've gotten in trouble on my channel because I didn't know that at first, just to be honest. And then like I did it one day and I was like, what the heck? Yeah, and so, it's kind of it's considered like quiet mode or silent mode or like battery saving mode. Usually the playback is going to be about the same, but like exporting any like high intensive like focus tasks, you'll see a decrease in power. But yeah, that is a benefit of the MacBook products, is they're just full bore no matter what you're doing, no matter if you're unplugged from power or plugged in. So yeah, that is true.
Okay, Olu Media is kind of clarifying the question over here. Sorry, just to clarify, I'm a photographer and videographer currently on the Lenovo Legion 5. Do you think the M1 is competition from a laptop regards performance, or would it be the Mac Mini? All right, how much is that performance dip? So how much is the performance dip between MacBook Pro and Mac Mini? Honestly, we're talking about maybe max 10%.
So wait, you mean between the Mac Mini and the MacBook Pro M1?
Yeah, like how much is the thermal like difference?
Yeah,
because
I would say the Mac Mini is probably. Sorry, I keep interrupting you. Go for it.
I know that the MacBook Air compared to the MacBook Pro dips in about 7 minutes or 10 minutes. It's going to lose about 20% of the performance.
Yes.
But I'm not sure what the difference is between Mac Mini and the MacBook Pro. Like, as much as I've done the testing, like the first Cinebench score, second, third, fourth, fifth, second, as much as I keep doing it, it's literally the same. It doesn't change for me at all. But does it dip a little bit? I'm not sure how much does it dip.
I mean, I guess I don't fully understand the question. Like, dip as in, does it dip like after it starts to heat up? Does it dip when, like I don't fully understand like what he's trying to say.
I think the question is like after.
All right, Divishu, I will answer your question. You don't have to post it 100 times, so we will get to it. We kind of lose other questions. We're working our way through them, so please just post that once. Thank you.
After like a first 10-15 minutes, when the laptop heats up and it starts ramping up, because Apple's like very, let's keep our laptops quiet, let's keep our devices quiet, so they're better, like they're gonna pull down the frequency of the actual processor to let it run cooler. So when you do like the Cinebench scores, at the the score of the first and let's say like fifth or sixth test multi core score, you're going to see like a little bit of a dip in the score because it just goes down because it goes hotter and then it just pulls it down rather than ramping up the fans.
Yeah.
But as far as I've done this testing on my Mac Mini, like I haven't seen the dip, maybe like a few percent, right? But this could be an error as well in the test, so I haven't seen it much.
So basically what I see is like they don't, from my experience when I was doing the playback and when I was doing exporting, it never like peaks. It never like starts off like, oh, we're going to export your clip in like 2 minutes. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh no, psych 7. It usually started at the anticipated time and maybe like bumped a few seconds here and there, because it's not going to overpower itself. That's the thing with the development with these new chips is they like know their limits. And so it's not going to be like, it's not going to punch way high and then like the fan's going to kick on and try and pull it down. Like it's gonna like ramp up and then it's gonna like, okay, that's where I'm good, and it's gonna coast through until it's done. That's one thing about Apple, like we were saying, one of the guys earlier was saying like quality control. They know what their parts are capable of because they're the one building it now. When you get these other laptop providers, they're not building the part. So they're gonna put it in and they're gonna cool it with, gauging it and fans and then but if they built the part, they would know exactly what it was capable of. So I don't think you're going to see as much dip. You're just not going to see as much like performance because it's going to get up and then coast at that level.
Yeah.
Okay, so he said he's learning graphic design. He can't afford Illustrator, so doing the right thing or have to purchase Illustrator. I've never used Inkscape. I apologize. So I have no idea on your question there. Have you ever used Inkscape? We'll answer that question real quick, and then we'll get back to this stream questions.
No, I haven't.
Sorry,
used
man.
Inkspace.
I wish we could help you on that, but I have no idea. You could use Affinity Designer. Affinity Designer is pretty good, or any of the Affinity suites. It's like $50 one-time purchase, so maybe check that out. I hope that helps you. Okay, so given at some point Adobe Premiere Pro will be native to Mac, is the MacBook Pro still the choice over, say, like a Dell XPS 13 9310 or a Dell XPS 9500 versus like an HP Envy 15? Okay. Okay. So the Dell XPS 9500 has a dedicated GPU. I'm pretty sure it's the 1650 Ti, which is good. It's not great, but it's good. It has an i7 9750H, which is a great processor as well. So where we're sitting right now, and depending again on you're the one who's going to be editing YouTube video. So are you doing 4K? Are you doing 1080p, so I would go for the MacBook Pro 1 if you want the Apple ecosystem, and then anticipating that when it goes Apple Silicon native, it will get even better. That'd be my kind of recommendation.
I would be just interested in knowing like how long will it take Adobe to optimize it for Apple? Like I wonder what's the priority for them, because it took them years to optimize and get the graphics card to actually accelerate the performance on the video playback. It took them like just recently, this year they did it, whereas like Final Cut and DaVinci have done it for a long time. So I'm just wondering how long will it actually take Adobe to optimize or create M1 or ARM-based apps,
So you mean like it took them a while to optimize playback, as in like when you play back in DaVinci Resolve, it rarely ever drops frames. Like it's smooth playback. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because whenever I drop something in DaVinci, no matter what it is, it almost always plays it back smooth. And I'm like, am I doing something wrong here? It's like working. Why is it?
Like the GPU acceleration in Adobe Premiere Pro, it's been for years. It's been only like certain things that the GPU can accelerate, like a little bit of color grading and certain effects.
Yeah.
But only recently, like a few months ago, suddenly the GPU now plays back the actual video. It can do video encoding as well as decoding on the GPU, which means like your processor is free to do like more other things. So it took them like years to do that.
And they're
like
still struggling. I mean, that's the thing with Premiere Pro. It's not the best, No, with Adobe, they spend so much time developing all these different apps that nobody gives like a crap about, but they forget their main apps that everybody uses. Like everybody uses Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator, After Effects, and Premiere Pro.
Yeah, that's it.
And then they create like Adobe Rush, Adobe CD, Adobe this, like Adobe Split, Adobe Sprint, Adobe like all this other stuff. I'm like, just make your one product better. But anyway, that's their MO, and it's disappointing. But anyway, with that in mind, and getting into 4K, you said you're going to be ramping up to 4K. If you watch, if you look at the video that I've done, when I drop my playback resolution to like half or 4% in Adobe Premiere Pro, I can play it back smoothly. So, and honestly, I'll ask you, Lori, do you ever play back full quality when you're editing? I never do. I always leave it at half or fourth.
No, only when I'm
Yeah.
only when I'm like after I've done the color grade, I'm looking back and then I want to see. But then I've always rendered it out because it just can't play back. Like often my workflow, how I'm editing my videos is there's a multicam of 2 or 3 cameras, and they're all shooting 4K because I often crop in to show the product a bit closer or whatever. So then there's 3 4K clips constantly in a multicam timeline.
Holy crap.
And whatever computer I tried to put on is just, even on my 3950X, believe it or not, I'm creating proxies for every single
Are you
project.
Serious? Holy crap. Okay, yeah, so there you go right there. So
I tried to do that on the M1 Mac Mini, and after like a few minutes I was like, no.
I'm sure it was just like yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's the thing. Like, it depends on your workflow. It's really true, Ashan. It really depends on your workflow because, like Lori's saying, he's doing the 3-cam 4K setup, and it's like the MacBook Pro M1 is like dying. But if you had one 4K camera at 4th quality, you're probably going to be okay. You're going to be fine. So I hope that gives you a little bit of help. Yeah, so the Affinity is paid. Yes, that's right. So it's only a one-time payment. All right, any budget laptops under $500? What are you doing? That's the question. Just need to edit videos for YouTube. So, not really. I mean, this is a question people face a lot, and the thing is, like, it's just the inflation rate and the development of technology. You're not going to get anything that you're going to be really happy with. One of my lowest recommendations would be like a laptop with a Ryzen 7 4700U processor. That's going to be something like a Acer Swift 3. So an Acer Swift 3. That's going to be my lowest recommendation for 1080p video editing. It just, I hate to say it, you just need to save more, ask for Christmas. I mean, I understand everybody has circumstances. And it's not me saying this, it's the technology. Like, the technology just simply is more expensive. And so to get the performance you need to actually effectively edit videos is at the $700 to $900 price range. That's really where it starts. And I'm sorry about that, Rallo. But I appreciate your positive response to that, because it really isn't me promoting companies so they make more money. It's just so that you'll be happy with the performance.
Yeah, unless you really want to go for like a big PC kind of line, and you actually don't need the form factor, because tell me wrong, Relo, but if you do need the portability aspect of it, and that's the main thing, and that's why you need a laptop, absolutely go for it. But if you don't, and you want to really sit down and you have a desk or something, you can get something for $500 that can actually get you going, and has a lot of future upgrade options. So whenever you're making a few more, bucks, then you can just add this more, and then your workflow will just get faster and things. So you could do that. I created a PC that cost less than the Mac Pro wheels, so less than $400. Everything built in, everything's like $400.
Yeah, watch that video on TechNotice's channel if you're curious about that, because that'll be helpful to you. Continue, sorry.
Yeah, so, and that was using there was not even a dedicated graphics card on it. It was a CPU from Ryzen that actually had the graphics built in.
I like that.
So that means that you don't need to spend any money on the graphics card, because on that budget range, you probably get something that is like not very good either. That whatever next upgrade will be, you'll be throwing it out anyway. So it means your money is not
that's good.
Spent on it. So yeah, For that
Yeah, I
price, I'd
love
rather
I
build.
love that about PC builds, and I always forget that, when I'm reviewing laptops, that like that's such a benefit to PC builds. So for instance, you used a Ryzen processor with an integrated GPU, but that doesn't mean that when you get an extra $250 cash because your grandma's like, "Hey, Sonny, want to wish you a happy Easter," and you can go out and get a dedicated 1660 Ti that'll just like ramp up your performance by like
Exactly.
50%. So great suggestion. I think laptops are wonderful. In context, but if you have the ability to have a permanent workstation, it's so much more like it's like they say, it's like adult Legos. You kind of build and
Yeah,
exchange,
it
and all of
is.
a sudden you have this super performance computer over 5 years. And then if one of your parts wears out, you're just like, oh, okay, let's see. Looks like the motherboard burnt out. Okay, $300, put in a new motherboard, and we're running down the road.
Yeah, it's true. And whoever's going to build a PC right now, I highly recommend the Ryzen route because the AM4 socket has stayed the same like for 4 years, I think, which means no matter your budget, you can get a motherboard, and later on you can upgrade your graphics cards or CPUs. Well, graphics cards anyway, but CPUs, you can upgrade them to 5000 series CPUs. That will be absolutely amazing, like the best CPUs in the world. You have this option to do that. If you go with Intel, if you go with some of the older like processors, you have like, and then go with a new processor, you need a new motherboard. You need probably new RAM because the
Yeah.
supports and things are different.
Yep.
But by going with Ryzen, suddenly everything's compatible.
Yeah.
Whatever your budget is, start with like second gen Ryzen chips. They're like less than $200.
Oh,
Absolutely amazing.
totally, totally. And you
You know what I
can
mean?
the upgrade path right now, even to 5000 series. I could still use my current 30. I could use my X570 motherboard to do 5000.
Yes,
So
exactly.
these are things we're talking about. Like this is totally plays into the question of the MacBook Pro's value. It's valuable in context. It's valuable
Yeah.
because it performs well for certain tasks, and it's a great build quality, and they're known to last a long time. So it's valuable in context. But like that's why you do your research, and that you come on this video and ask questions, so that way you can get more perspective than just ads and promotion and Mac versus PC old commercials with the nerd versus the cool kid from Die Hard. So it's important to really go through these questions. Okay, I have a question here from Kashav. His budget's $1,300. He's going to be an interior designer. He's concerned about the Lenovo Legion 5 with only 200 nits and very low RGB. Okay, first and foremost, Kashav, make sure you're looking at the right model. So the model you're looking at most likely is the 120 hertz refresh rate. That model has terrible specs. If you get the model with 144 hertz refresh rate, you're going to get a screen with 99% sRGB and about 350 nits of brightness, if you want to stick with the Lenovo Legion 5i. Okay, so go do your research on those two comparisons. But if you're not stuck on the Lenovo Legion 5i, I would check out the MSI Prestige 15, the Full HD version, which is great performance and about 100% sRGB, or the Gigabyte Aero 15, which is Pantone color validated at 100% sRGB, Adobe RGB, and DCI-P3. And the last time I checked, the Gigabyte Aero 15 was on really good sale for around that price. It might be back up to $1,500 now, but last time I checked, it was on sale, and it had a great price. So, yep. Okay, we got some more questions. Whenever I'm editing on 62% sRGB rated screen, and when I see that content after editing on 100%, does the rise in video quality or any difference there? No, the rise in video quality has nothing to do with that. It's just the color. It's just the colors you're seeing. So like if I edit,
Yeah.
okay, I have two screens here. You guys can't see them, but I have two screens, so trust me. This one over here is like a $100 screen. It's just like a Dell screen. It's probably got like 50% sRGB. And this over here is my Acer Concept DCM2, okay? And so this screen over here is going to be 100% sRGB, 100% Adobe RGB. So when I edit over here and then I move it over here, it looks completely different. Color-wise,
Yeah.
it's not going to change the quality. Now, it's going to change the quality if this is a 4K screen and this is a 1080p screen.
Yeah.
So
true.
there's that.
I've got a question for you, Ben.
Yeah.
If you were going to buy, let's say you're a person who needs the MacBook M1, right? You're going to, do you know what? I'm going to go and purchase an M1.
Okay.
Which specs are you going to go for?
I'm going to get...
Would you upgrade?
Yes, I'm going to get 16
Upgrade
gigs of
certain
RAM.
things?
100%. There's no question because I don't want to cap my performance in multitasking, and RAM does help in Photoshop. If you have more RAM, it can kind of allow the laptop to rise up and take more of that power, and it does help. So I'm going to upgrade it. Now, if I would get the MacBook Pro 16, I might upgrade it to 32 gigs of RAM if I'm video editing, but I wouldn't do 64 personally, just for my use case. Yeah.
What about storage?
I would do 512 because Apple storage is so expensive, and then I would just get external drives and just keep an external drive on me and always just be dumping off. It's a pain in the butt, but at the end of the day, like Apple storage is like $200 for every 512 gigs. It's insanely expensive, which is way overpriced. It's good. It's good storage. It's fast, but it's just like not. I'd rather upgrade the RAM than upgrade the storage.
Yeah.
If you were gonna buy a Mac Mini, which model?
I would just get the base model.
Okay.
Literally, I wouldn't upgrade anything
Because
here's the big caveat.
yes.
Because the RAM usage, what I've seen and what I've researched, I don't see a big difference in the 8 and 16 gigabytes. It only becomes a difference when you're doing like rendering at the same time while doing heavy, like hardcore browser things or something else. So when there's like rendering on the background while playing back like, I don't know, 50 tracks on Logic Pro, then there was like a difference, what I've seen. But until that point, like I would never render at the same time while producing a full-on track to, I don't know, Justin Bieber, right? I would never do that. I would do like one thing at the time. And the multitasking, what you do if you are video editing and browsing, that would be fine. If I'm doing Photoshop a little bit and then, whatever, browsing in the background, that multitasking I wouldn't see. And for someone who is starting off and maybe thinking, do you know what, Mac Mini, $699, do you know what, I want to learn it. I want to get it for Christmas because I want to learn, to get it going. I would rather spend that extra $200 on get the Final Cut Pro or Logic.
Yeah.
Spend it on the software because you'll never get it back. You always, keep that software, and whenever you upgrade later, you can get it back. Whenever the better M1X chips come out, then you can upgrade that. So that's what I would do, because I'm really thinking, should I go 16? And I was really trying to research to get the answer for myself. Do you know what? How much is the difference between 16? But at the same time, I understand there are people who are like doing heavy like content creation on Final Cut, and they need it to be exporting fast because the things need to be uploaded while they're creating thumbnails at the same time on Photoshop and on Lightroom at the same time. Yeah. That is heavy multi-core, like multitasking. Yep. Then probably that's worth. And you probably already have the software if you're that type of person. So then probably.
Yeah. And it's we're talking kind of upgrade path, and the thing is like when you have a RAM, I think about like a graphic designer use case. So answering Nagy's question here. So for a graphic designer, if you're running in multiple programs, I would definitely get a MacBook Pro. I would not get the MacBook Air just because it's a smaller computer, so it's going to be throttle a little more because there's less breathing room. That's kind of what it boils down to with the MacBook Air. It's got the same chip, same gigs of RAM, but it's not going to run as efficient because it's like crammed into that tiny little space. So as a graphic designer, I'd go for a MacBook Pro. And if you're going to be multitasking, get the 16 gigs of RAM. If you're working in Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator, consistently, then you're going to be taxing your system with a multitasking scenario. So that's where the 16 gigs of RAM works. But if you're just running one app like at a time, then 8 gigs, one or two, then 8 gigs is plenty for sure. Okay, so let's get a few more questions here. We got about another 10 minutes or so. Is 8 gigs enough for Photoshop? Yeah, I would say with 50 layers in Photoshop, I would say you'd be fine. Now, like we're saying, if you would start to multitask, you're going to run into, some issues where it gets overloaded. So what you can do is maybe close down a program or two if you're really getting a big project going, and then it would be better. But honestly, for graphic designers, like we're saying, it's a great product. Like you really don't have that much concern. The MacBooks have been performing on a stellar level for years. And now that they have the M1 chip, let me show you the Photoshop benchmarks real quick, Ree, if you just joined us here. So the Photoshop scores, as you can see, the current MacBook Pro M1 is in green, and the old MacBook Pro is about 6 to the right, and you can see it says Apple MacBook Pro i5. So that's the 2020 MacBook Pro with the i5 processor. That's around $1,800 versus the MacBook Pro M1, which is the $1,300. So as you can see, the new M1 chip is beating out its doppelganger, by 140 points. So yes, you're going to be totally fine. It's got great performance. So I hope that helps explain. Okay, let's try and get a few more of these questions, Lori.
Okay.
MacBook Pro 13 M1 now, or wait, next gen, maybe 14 inch. That's really a personal preference. MacBook Pro 13 M1, or wait for M2, maybe 14 inch. Who knows if they'll do that. Leaks, there might be leaks about that right now. I have no idea. I would personally wait for the M2 on the 16 gig model. If we're talking like what would I do, because it's going to have the dedicated GPU and it's going to be killer for creator performance.
Yeah.
But
to be honest, I'm wondering, like, what is Apple going to do? Like, if they're going to go with dedicated GPU, right? So even if they have that M1 chip, I know there's a graphics card in there, but will they have a dedicated graphics card in there as well?
In what model?
With, let's say, the new M1X chip, with whether it's iMac or 16-inch MacBook Pros.
Yeah, I would assume they're going to keep they'll keep the AMD Radeon 56 or whatever their newest Radeon is that they want to put in there. I can't see them doing it integrated in that. They have to do that to make that M1 chip just a beast. It has to complement with the GPU. Yeah.
I'm wondering, why are they not using NVIDIA? Why are they using Radeon and AMD? Is it a deal that they have to honor and like keep, or is it because they've used them since the? No, actually, they haven't used since the beginning.
They were using 970s probably 7 to 10 years ago. Yeah.
I got a MacBook in 2010, and it had NVIDIA.
Yep.
Inside.
Yep. Yeah. So it really depends. Is it beneficial to use external monitor for editing purposes before exporting the video? So okay. So whatever you're editing I could have a 720p screen, and I could be editing 4K. Just because I can't see 4K doesn't mean it's not happening. So literally, it's just for your own pleasure. Like when you think about a 4K screen, it's just for your own pleasure. It's not affecting the actual quality of the footage. It does nothing. So if I edit a 8K project on a 720p screen and then export it and send it to somebody with an 8K screen, it'll be 8K for them. I'm just missing out on all the benefits. I hope that makes sense. Sorry, that was just a quick question that had been asked a couple times. Okay, this is a great question. This is one that I love. If I want a MacBook Pro, what year should I get if I don't want to buy a new one? I think we're breaking up a little bit again.
Sorry.
It's all good. We're good there. Okay. So the question is, what's your budget, first and foremost? The second one is, what's your use case? So budget and use case will give us a much clearer picture on what you should buy. So if you want to comment that in again, Cozy, or Cause, or I'm sorry, we struggle with names here on this channel. Just what's your use case and what's your budget, and then we'll get to your question. And as far as Negi is concerned, Negi, I would get the MacBook Pro for Photoshop work and graphic designing. That's just me personally. Somebody might make a different recommendation, but that's what I would do. And then Kashav says there's no service center for MSI or Gigabyte. Do you have another laptop you'd recommend? Maybe the Acer Concept D3 Pro. That's a really great color accurate laptop, great performance. Check out the Acer Concept D3 Pro or just the D3. All right. 8 gig available in my country. Do you use a graphics tablet? I'm curious if the drivers will work on the M1 chip. I have no idea. Go to Wacom or whatever your graphics tablet is and check get with their customer support and ask them if it'll work. Apple dedicated GPU might be coming. I don't know if Apple's going to produce their own dedicated GPU. I know that they've had a relationship with AMD for years. I assume they're going to test out the AMD GPU next alongside their Apple M1 chip. There's no way they're developing a GPU and a CPU at the same time. That is just so much R&D. and that'd be so much overhead for them. So I doubt that they're going to have their own dedicated GPU when they launch the 16. What do you think, Lori?
Interesting question. Like, I'm just thinking a few things that I've noticed. For example, none of the new Mac M1s support eGPU, right? So
Yes.
the Thunderbolt ports, you can't support eGPU. So I'm wondering if... Okay, so this is just in the back of my mind. Completely crazy thought, not backed by anything, right? Just my crazy thought. What if Apple is actually, instead of using the M1 chip with CPU and GPU, okay, make it all GPU, right? Put, I don't know, 16, 18, 24 GPU cores in there, and create Apple's own dedicated, whatever, G1 chip, right? Would be awesome. But how long is that going to take? I don't think we're going to see it like in the next
That's my point.
12 months.
Yeah. So I underestimated how long it would take them to launch the M1 chip. I said it was going to be, 12 to 18 months, and they ended up doing it in 6 to 9. But since we've heard nothing about a GPU product from them,
there's no rumors, nothing.
Yeah.
I doubt it.
I'm thinking AMD. I'm thinking AMD is going to be in this in the 16-inch MacBook Pro, and then the iMacs. Not the iMac. Yeah, the iMacs. That'd be my...
Which, like, from a video creative perspective, right, I have no idea why they're doing it. AMD GPUs perform the worst in DaVinci and in Premiere Pro. Yeah. So I'm just thinking, come on. Why? Yeah. I don't know. Maybe there's some other
they'll switch back. I have no idea. Maybe they'll switch back.
Oh.
Oop, it got dark.
Gone.
Okay, next question we have. Okay, I'm confused between Apple MacBook Pro M1 and Asus Zephyrus G14. What do you recommend? The question is, what are you confused about? But I can kind of start talking about it while you tell me what you're confused about. The quick run through, I talked about this earlier in the video, but the Asus Zephyrus G14 is going to be much faster. It's going to drop less frames while doing full quality video editing. It's going to be better at multitasking because it has 8 cores and 16 threads. It's going to be better for 3D modeling, motion graphics, basically any intense app or workflow. Whereas the MacBook Pro M1 is going to be great for somebody who's doing one 4K camera on like 4th quality or full quality in Final Cut Pro. It's going to be for somebody who's graphic designing, like I said, light 1080p or 4K video editing, web browsing, going to class, stuff like that. So that's like my big quick punch right there. Video editing is my forte. Okay, then the question is 4K or 1080p, multicam setup. What is it? What is your workflow? What is your setup look like? Also from G Tendra, I don't know what 1.5 lek is to 2 lek. I don't even know what currency that is. So please forgive my American unknowing of world currencies. So purchasing the Lenovo Legion 5. It's easy to upgrade storage. Yeah, it's super easy to upgrade storage on like Windows laptops, so you could swap that out for a different SSD later on. Yep. To answer your question, Surab, if that's how you pronounce your name, I'm sorry. We're really rough at names here, aren't we, Laurie?
Very bad.
All right. So if there's any more questions, get those in real quick. I gotta wrap up here. We've been on for about an hour, which has been fun, super fun. But I gotta head off to work. It's not all YouTube for me. Hopefully one day, but right now it's still working. But enjoying that a lot. But I wish I could hang out with you guys all day. Oh, we pronounced his name perfectly. That makes me so happy. Wow, it's a shocker. Anything you want to add before we head out?
No, I think it's been great. Just I don't know if you mentioned that Durgo's question. Best battery life Mac now? Did you get that question?
Yes, I don't know what that question means.
I think it means like what's the Mac that has the longest battery life?
It will be the
MacBook Pro M1.
Yeah.
100%.
It'll be the most optimized. Maybe the Air might come close, but because it has a bigger battery in the Pro M1, I'm guessing.
Yeah, almost double the size, so it will reach.
No questions. Actually, the best battery life right now would probably be the Mac Mini.
Yeah.
You're never out of power unless your city goes down. I'm just kidding.
I mean, this is completely another topic, but I did some testing, like how much battery does it actually use on idle? It uses less than my LED bulbs in my living room, like less than one LED bulb in my living room.
Crazy.
Like sits idle, right? If I do a browsing, on Safari and just, answering emails, it's 5 watts. Sorry, 5 watts of power.
That's crazy.
5 watts. That is mental.
Wow.
My Windows PC uses 140 idle.
I know, right? I don't even want to know what mine's using. Okay, let's answer this one again because this one's come up a lot real quick. MacBook Pro M1 for Red Raw. Go, Lori.
Yeah, depends what resolution. What I tested, I put my M1 Mac Mini compared to the MacBook Pro 2019 base model, which is like my laptop, and the Mac Mini absolutely smashed the Red Raw 4K. So if it's 4K, you'll be fine. As soon as you hit that 6K, 8K,
it's gone. It's out of here. It's dead.
M1 left the chat.
Yeah. No, that's true. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, that's the thing, guys. Like, let's keep these in context. They are affordable Mac products that are increasing in that category. It's like saying, hey, I have a BMW 3 Series. Can I race, with the BMW M Series? M3.
Yeah.
No, it's the base model. The M3 has like 600 horsepower. The base models, it's like a 3.2 like inline 4. It's just pathetic.
Yeah.
So it's like, apples to apples. You could have the same product. You got the BMW 335, but then you have the BMW M3. Like, you're going to be lost in the dust by the M3. So kind of that same thing. You got the MacBook Pro M1 versus, say, like the MacBook Pro 16 with an i9 processor. The MacBook Pro 16 is going to kill it. It's just, we got to do this apples to apples comparison. It's really important to be remembering that. All right, last question, and then we got to roll at 7. Just regular video editing for YouTube and small business, which model? I would again go MacBook Pro M1 because if you're doing 1080p or video editing, you're going to have no hiccups. I would definitely go MacBook Pro M1. For you with it's a great buy right now, especially that you're doing some small business, some video editing. So that'd be my recommendation for you, Boss Lady Black. Yeah. Okay. Let's cut it, or else we could go on all morning.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here, guys. I really appreciate it. You're most welcome, Boss Lady. We are so grateful that you guys come on and hang out with us and ask questions. I hope we got to all of them and helped you guys out. If you're interested in PC builds, then TechNotice is your guy. I'm trying to get into the space, but people aren't really giving me as much love at it as you. So definitely check out TechNotice. If you're interested in laptops, come on over to me. And we're going to be doing these live streams. We've talked about it, like maybe doing them every other week. So if you guys have ideas or topics, whether it be about PC builds or laptops, let us know. We love doing this. And so we want to bring more great quality Q&As to you guys. I'm Benji Kaiser. And you are?
I'm TechNotice.
All right.
Here.
Yes. And we'll see you guys on the next live stream or video.
See you soon.